Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you.
On this Father's Day, as we gather, there is a lot happening in our world. Early this morning, my two sons, Tom and Charles, caught a flight from Myrtle Beach, and they are on their way to New York City for orientation and training before they leave at the end of August for the year-long missionary journey in Japan and South Africa. So as a father, I'm saying my prayers for the two that are flying to New York, and saying my prayers for the one in Liberia and the one in Charlotte and the one at home asleep right now. But I suspect for those of us as fathers, we are saying our prayers as we remember them, but I am reminded of the many fathers who are grieving this morning because of the Orlando 49. I'm reminded of the children who are grieving for their fathers who were among the Charleston 9. And God knows the list goes on and on. I'm reminded of the many children who are grieving for their fathers in Iraq, Syria, Liberia, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the list goes on. But it's Father's Day. And I'm reminded of those who have had no relationship with fathers, those whose relationship with the father have been so strained that they cannot know what it is to have a father. And that's my Father's Day reflection, because I want to get us along with the sermon this morning. I want to get us to the sermon this morning because in the book of Kings, we have Elijah the prophet who is running for dear life. The portion of this passage that you didn't hear this morning is where Elijah has stood up for God against the prophet of Baal and had won and slaughtered them. Hundreds of them were slaughtered by Elijah. And the word had gotten to Jezebel, who said, I will do to you what you did to them. And hence Elijah is on the run. He's trying to get away from her. And as he is running, he and his servants, they get to a distance. He said, you stay here. And he goes about a day's journey into the wilderness, and he's tired. So he sits down. And God comes calling to Elijah. What are you doing here? I'm running. I'm running for life. I'm afraid I may be killed. All of your people have given up on you. I'm the only one left. Really? Yes, Lord, I'm telling you, I'm the only one left. Anyway, get up and find something to eat. There is bread and there's water. He eats, he drinks, he goes back to sleep. He's awakened again. Get up and eat, because it's going to be a long journey. And when he gets up and eats the second time and begins the journey for 40 days and 40 nights, what he had eaten would be the food that he would have to survive on. And he goes deep into the desert. And God comes calling. But God is not in the earthquake, not in the storm, not in the fire, none of those things. God comes calling in a way that Elijah can receive the message that God brings. Sheer silence. It's out of the sheer silence that then God speaks to Elijah what God has to say to him. In some way, it's going to be okay, Elijah. You don't have to keep running. Now, hold that in mind, because I'm going to come back to Elijah. Now, let's fast forward, because I want to get to Jesus and then come back to Elijah. Jesus and his disciples come across the Sea of Galilee, and there they are in the country of the Gerasenes. And a man, Jesus is not received by the mayor of the city and given the key to the city. He's received by a man who is demon possessed. He's buck naked, if you will, out of his mind, and he's the one who comes to Jesus in his birthday suit, if you will, and says to Jesus, "What will you have to do with us, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" And Jesus is already going to speak to what ails the man. Make a long story short, the man is healed. But the word gets out to the community, and when they come and see the man who is healed, they are afraid and they ask Jesus to leave their community. Now, when we read this passage, we should remember these people are not looking at Jesus as the Son of God as we are today. We are reading the story in retrospect. These people are looking at Jesus as another rabbi that has visited a community and has healed this man who was sick. And there he is. He used to be in the cemetery. Now he's in his right mind and he's sitting here with us. Jesus, please go somewhere else. And Jesus goes somewhere else. But the man who is healed wants to go with Jesus, and he says, no. You go back. You go back home and tell others how good God has been to you. St. Stephen's, you go back and tell Little River, tell Long, tell North Myrtle Beach how good God has been to you. You go back. Don't come with me. You got work to do in your community. Go back and tell someone of God's compassion, of God's mercy. You and I are called upon to do that. Yes, it's easy to say, I want to follow Jesus. Jesus will come along with you. You do everything else, and I can just be in the shadow. No, you go and stand up and tell others about the goodness and mercy of God. Now come back with me to 1 Kings. Elijah is waiting to hear from God. And it's not going to be in the earthquake and the storm. It's going to be in the sheer silence. Because God knows this is the point when Elijah can hear him. It is not for God that he's going to speak in silence. It is for Elijah so that he may hear what God has to say. And this is that passage that people often talk about, the still small voice of God. God is not always speaking to you and me in a still small voice. He is speaking to us in sheer violence. Through the violence, he is saying to us, something is amiss here. And so parents and family are grieving this morning because of violence. Somewhere in South Carolina, I've forgotten exactly where it was, but there was a guy who was having a difficult time. And he just looked around and said, something is wrong with our world. And as he was thinking about this and crossing the street, apparently, he saw something. Now, God is not speaking to Elijah in a still small voice. This man who is trying to make sense of the senselessness of events in our world here in South Carolina saw something. And it was a young man helping an elderly lady across the street. And he got the message. God was just reminding him, all is not yet lost. Look, do you see that? There is still good in this world. People still care for others. It's not only the gunman who decided to take so many lives a week ago. There is a young man helping an elderly lady across the street. But here is the part of it that he didn't speak about in the text he wrote. It was a young African-American man helping a Caucasian elderly lady across the street. South Carolina. Get the image. God still speaks to us, not in still small voice, but he speaks to us through images. See for yourself. And there are a lot happening across this country where people are reaching out to other people. But it all gets overshadowed by the Charleston 9, the Orlando 49, and on. Connecticut, Columbine, and the list goes on. Elijah was waiting for God to speak in the earthquake. He didn't. In the fire, he didn't. He spoke to him in silence. How might he be speaking to you and me this morning or today? On this Father's Day, how might he remind us that amidst all of the fragmentation of our world, God is still our Father? How might he remind you today that he still cares for us? I do not know, but this much I know: he continues to show up, and just to remind us of his mercy and compassion. Yes, the world sometimes will challenge us deep in the core, but God still speaks. God still speaks. May you and I hear the message. May you and I see the message. And may you and I respond to the message, so that one day a little boy will have a reason to say, there were some people in North Myrtle Beach that drove 20 to 25 miles to Lawrence to sit with me. Why did they do that? And I suspect Jesus will say to them, or to him, because I told them to go and tell the world how good God had been to them. May you and I go forth from this place and seek the opportunity to tell others of the goodness and mercy of God that we have experienced, so that they may experience it through us. And then when all is said and done, the glory, honor, and praise will be given to the one who has commissioned us to go and tell others of the goodness and mercy of God. Amen.